My name is Aubrey Scott. I'm 39 years old, and I'm a senior firefighter in Paradise, California. People hear that job title and imagine strength like it's a permanent thing, like you wake up wearing it, like it can't slip. But the truth is, fear doesn't ask permission. It doesn't care how many years you've served, how many calls you've answered, how many times you've walked into heat and smoke because someone else couldn't. Fear still finds the softest place in you. And for me, that place has always been my son. Jacob was 14 then, old enough to act tough, young enough to still leave his socks on the couch and forget to charge his phone unless I reminded him. He had that half-grown look, shoulders trying to widen, voice trying to deepen, eyes still too honest to hide when he was scared. That morning in November, 5 years ago now, I was already on a 24-hour shift when the first warnings hit. The alarm sirens sliced through the early quiet like something alive. The radio crackled with updates that kept getting worse, faster, heavier. Wind, dry air, an ignition that didn't stay small. In the firehouse, the mood shifted in seconds. Not panic. Firefighters don't really panic. But something colder than panic. Recognition. This wasn't going to be one of those fires you put out and go home and laugh about over bad coffee. This one had teeth. When the order came down, evacuate the entire town of Paradise, my throat tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't swallow. Not because I was afraid of the flames, because Jacob was home. And my boyfriend, Ethan Miller, was stuck at the hospital. Ethan was an ER nurse, the kind who stayed calm when the room was screaming, the kind who always told me, "We don't get to choose when people need us." It was one of the things I loved about him, and one of the things that terrified me. I called him anyway. No answer. I tried again, listening to the ring like it was counting down something I couldn't stop. Finally, he picked up, but the background was chaos. Voices calling codes, wheels squealing, a monitor alarm that wouldn't shut up. "Aubrey," he said, breathless. "I can't leave. We've got patients everywhere. Some can't be moved. We're doing emergency triage in the hallway." My hand clenched around the phone so tight my knuckles hurt. "What about Jacob?" I asked. "He's alone." There was a pause, not long, but heavy, like Ethan could feel the question land in his chest the same way it landed in mine. "Get him out," Ethan said. "Get him somewhere safe. I'll figure my side out, okay? Just get him out." I stared out at the smoke beginning to stain the sky, and for a moment I felt something I hate admitting. Helpless, because I was in uniform, because I was needed, because duty was calling my name while my son was sitting in a house that might not be standing by nightfall. So I did what any mother would do. I started calling family. My parents lived in Sacramento, about 85 miles away. Their house was big, 2-story, wide living room, guest rooms, a backyard my father never stopped bragging about. And my older sister Rachel lived there too. Rachel wasn't homeless or struggling. She was finding herself, as my mother liked to say. As if that explained why she'd been living under my parents' roof for years, like it was her natural right. Still, I didn't have time to judge anyone's choices. I just needed my son safe. Rachel answered on the second ring. "Aubrey?" she said, voice bright, almost excited, like this emergency had given her a chance to be the hero in her own story. "I heard something about a fire. Are you okay?" "I'm working," I said, cutting through it. "Listen to me. Jacob needs to leave Paradise now. Ethan's stuck at the hospital and I'm on shift. Can he come to Mom and Dad's?" Rachel didn't hesitate. "Of course," she said. "Bring him here. The house is big. He can take the couch or the guest room. Don't worry, sis. Family sticks together." Those words, "family sticks together," should have comforted me. Instead, they sat in my stomach like something unfinished. But I ignored the feeling because I had no time for instincts, no time for old resentments, no time for the tiny voice in my head that always whispered, "Rachel says the right things when she wants to." I arranged transportation for Jacob, told him to grab his essentials, phone charger, hoodie, backpack, his birth certificate folder, because I'd learned the hard way that disasters don't pause for paperwork. He texted me a photo from inside the car, seatbelt across his chest, eyes wide, jaw set like he was trying not to cry. "I'm going, Mom. I'm okay." I stared at that message until my vision blurred, then forced myself back into the work. Because outside, Paradise was beginning to burn. Hours passed in a blur of smoke and screaming radios and the kind of heat that makes your eyelashes feel brittle. You don't get used to it. You just function anyway. I kept checking my phone between calls like it was a lifeline. Finally, 2 hours later, Jacob texted, "Made it to Grandma's. Aunt Rachel's here. I'm inside." I exhaled so hard my lungs shook. For the first time that day, I felt something close to relief. I texted back, Stay there, don't leave. I'll come as soon as I can. I believed it was handled. I believed my son was safe. And that's what still makes my stomach turn when I think about what happened next. Because the radio on my shoulder started beeping. Sharp, insistent, personal. That sound is only for emergencies, not town emergencies. Personal ones. I froze in the doorway of a house we were clearing, smoke rolling past my helmet like fog. I glanced down and saw the caller ID. Jacob. 3 missed calls. My blood went cold so fast it felt like ice water poured into my veins. I answered immediately. Mom, Jacob said. His voice wasn't crying, which somehow made it worse. It was tight, controlled, like he was trying to keep himself together with his teeth. They won't let me stay here anymore. For a second, the world narrowed to that sentence. I couldn't hear the flames, couldn't hear my crew shouting, couldn't hear anything but my child's voice and the quiet terror threaded through it. What do you mean? I forced my voice to stay calm. Mothers learn how to do that. Sound steady while your insides collapse. Where are you? There was a pause, and then Jacob swallowed. I'm outside, he said, by the gate. Aunt Rachel told me to go somewhere else. Outside. He was outside. In November air, in the middle of a crisis, after driving 3 hours believing he had reached safety. Jacob, I said, my throat tight. Why? What happened? His words came out in fragments, like he was still trying to understand them himself. At first it was fine. She gave me lunch. She said I could rest in the living room. Uncle Sam was here too. He wasn't saying much, but he smiled at me. Rachel's husband, Sam, had always been quiet, polite, the kind of man who didn't argue in public, but you could feel thoughts behind his eyes. Then Jacob's voice changed. But then a fancy car came, like really fancy. My grip tightened on the phone. A luxury car? Jacob repeated, almost whispering. A Mercedes. I closed my eyes. Rachel. Of course. Jacob continued, voice trembling now. A man got out. He looked like those guys in ads. Suit, watch. Like he knew everyone should be impressed. Aunt Rachel. She started acting different. She was cleaning, fixing pillows. She told me to pack my stuff. To pack your stuff, I echoed, feeling something raw scrape through me. And then she told me... Jacob's voice cracked. She told me there wasn't enough room anymore, because more important guests were coming. More important. My son's safety weighed less than appearances. I tried to breathe. I tried to keep my voice gentle. Did she say where you were supposed to go? Jacob hesitated. She just pointed, like outside was a place. She said your job is important and I shouldn't bother you. She said I shouldn't call you because you're busy saving people. That sentence hit like a slap. Rachel had told my child not to call his mother while fire swallowed our town. Are Grandma and Grandpa home? I asked, though I already felt the answer coming. No, Jacob said. Aunt Rachel said they're visiting relatives in Oregon. She said they won't be back for a few days. My heartbeat hammered so loud it felt like it drowned out the world. My parents were gone. Rachel had full control of that house, and she had pushed my child out of it. Jacob's voice went quieter. I tried calling Ethan, but it didn't go through. I tried texting, but I don't know. I didn't know what to do. I waited outside for a long time. I swallowed hard, tasting smoke and rage. Listen to me, I said, steadying my voice like I was wrapping it around him. Don't move. Stay where you are. I'm going to figure something out. I couldn't leave my post. People were still trapped. Homes still burning. My crew needed me. But my son needed me too. So I did the only thing I could do fast. I called Uncle Tom, my dad's younger brother, who lived about 20 minutes from my parents' place. He answered immediately. Aubrey, he said, I heard the news. Are you all right? Tom, I said, not wasting breath. Jacob's in Sacramento. Rachel kicked him out. He's outside the gate. Can you pick him up right now? There was no hesitation. I'm on my way, Uncle Tom said, voice turning sharp with purpose. Text me the address, send me the address, and tell him to stay visible. I'll be there. I exhaled, just a little, like someone had loosened a fist around my chest. But relief didn't last, because as I turned back toward the fire line, something else rose in me, hotter than exhaustion, hotter than smoke. A truth Rachel didn't know, or maybe didn't care to know. A truth I had kept locked behind my teeth for 6 years. Because while Rachel lived in that house like it belonged to her, I was the one paying to keep it standing. And as I walked back into the heat, I realized something with absolute clarity. Rachel hadn't just rejected my son. She had rejected my sacrifice. And she had done it while my town burned. By the time I stepped back into the fire line, the flames felt almost honest compared to what was burning in my chest. Fire doesn't pretend to love you. Fire doesn't smile. promise family sticks together, then shove your child out into the cold because someone richer pulled into the driveway. I moved like my body was on autopilot. Hose line, orders, checks, evacuations, while my mind stayed trapped at my parents' gate in Sacramento, staring at my son standing alone with a backpack that suddenly looked too small for how heavy his fear was. Every few minutes, I checked my phone whenever I could steal a second behind a truck or a wall of smoke. One text from Uncle Tom came through like a lifeline. Got him, he's with me. Safe. My knees almost buckled. I pressed my forehead against the side of the engine for just one breath, one private moment where I let myself feel the relief I couldn't show on scene. Then the radio snapped again. More addresses, more people, more lives. So I kept going. I kept going because that's what mothers do when the world demands two versions of them at the same time, the rescuer and the one who needs rescuing. 16 hours later, the fire station finally felt like a place I could breathe again. Not clean. Nothing was clean. My skin was layered in ash. My eyes burned from smoke and fatigue. My hands shook the way they do when adrenaline runs out and reality comes back to collect its payment. I video called Jacob the moment I had a sliver of privacy. His face appeared on my screen, washed in warm indoor light, and I could tell immediately he was trying to act fine. He wasn't crying. That was the terrifying part. Jacob sat upright on Uncle Tom's couch, shoulders stiff, like he was afraid if he relaxed even an inch, something inside him would crack. "Hey, kiddo," I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "You okay?" He nodded too fast. "Uncle Tom made spaghetti," he said, like that one detail could fix the rest. "And he let me take a shower. I'm fine." Uncle Tom appeared behind him, hand resting lightly on Jacob's shoulder, protective, steady. But then Jacob looked down, and his voice got quieter. "Mom," he said, "I didn't do anything." My heart twisted. "I know," I said instantly. "You didn't do anything wrong." He swallowed. Aunt Rachel looked at me like I was in the way. I closed my eyes for a second, the image slicing through me. My son, treated like clutter. "Tell me everything," I said. And Jacob did. He told me how Rachel welcomed him at first. Warm smile, lunch plate, a casual, "You can rest right here." How Sam hovered, like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the courage. Then he described the moment the Mercedes arrived. Rachel's energy shifting like someone flipped a switch. "She started fixing stuff," Jacob said. Like we were on TV. "She told me to move my shoes. She said the living room needed to look presentable." Then Mark walked in. "Aunt Rachel introduced him like he was famous," Jacob continued. "She said, 'This is Mark Halstead, my potential business partner.' And he smiled at me like he was looking past me." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Jacob went on, voice trembling just slightly now. "Mark's wife was there too. She had this shiny hair and a purse that looked like it cost more than my whole closet, and Aunt Rachel kept laughing at everything Mark said." I stared at the screen, feeling a cold clarity settle over me. Rachel wasn't just choosing a business opportunity. She was auditioning for a life she hadn't earned, and my son was an inconvenience to her performance. "When you asked to come back inside," I said carefully, "what did she do?" Jacob's eyes flickered. He hesitated. Uncle Tom's expression darkened, like he already knew what was coming. "She told me," Jacob's voice cracked. "She told me not to make her look bad. She said if I wanted to help her, I'd stay quiet. And then she—" He stopped. My throat tightened. "Jacob!" He took a breath like it hurt. "She moved my backpack outside," he whispered, "and she closed the gate." My vision blurred. For a second, all I saw was that gate, not my parents' gate, a line dividing who mattered and who didn't. And my son was on the wrong side. I forced myself to breathe. "I'm so sorry," I said, voice shaking. "I'm so sorry." Jacob shook his head, quick and desperate, like he didn't want me to blame myself. "It's not your fault, Mom." But it was. At least it felt like it. Because I was the one who always thought maybe this time Rachel will be better. I ended the call after a few more steadying words and a promise that I'd come get him as soon as I could. Then I turned toward Uncle Tom, still on video, my voice dropping. "Tom," I said, "I need to talk to you." His eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." I stared at the ash on my sleeves like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. "There's something you don't know," I said. "Something I never told anyone, except Ethan." Uncle Tom didn't interrupt, he just waited. 6 years of silence sat in my mouth like stones, and then I let them fall. 6 years ago, I began, Mom and Dad were drowning. Dad retired early because of his heart problems, and they started missing payments. Rachel offered to move in to help. Uncle Tom let out a short, humorless breath. "Help!" "She didn't help," I said, the bitterness finally rising. She didn't contribute a single dollar, but she moved into the house like it was hers. My hands started to shake again, but not from exhaustion this time. When the bank threatened foreclosure, I continued, I offered a temporary loan, just until they got stable again. Mom cried. Dad promised it would only be a few months. Uncle Tom's face tightened, like he could already see the ending. It wasn't a few months, I said. It became permanent. I swallowed, my voice turning raw. I've been paying $1,850 a month for the mortgage, I told him, and $500 a month for Mom and Dad's health insurance for 6 years. Uncle Tom's eyes widened, and for the first time, his calm cracked. Aubrey, are you telling me you've... Over $150,000, I said quietly. And that's just the big payments, not counting repairs, utilities when they fell behind, random emergencies Rachel couldn't handle. Uncle Tom stared at me like he didn't recognize me. I didn't blame him. Most people thought I was just the strong one, the reliable one, the one who always handled it. I laughed once, sharp and empty. You know what I missed? I asked, voice breaking. Vacations, extra training certifications, Jacob's soccer trips. We cut corners everywhere. Ethan and I postponed moving in together because I kept saying, just one more month, just until my parents get stable. My chest tightened. And tonight, I whispered, Rachel had the nerve to throw Jacob outside, in the house I've been paying for. Silence. Uncle Tom looked like he might explode, but he kept his voice steady for Jacob's sake. That ends, he said. It has to. I nodded slowly. But something inside me still needed to see Rachel's face when she tried to justify it. So I did the one thing exhaustion, rage, and motherhood all agreed on. I called her. Rachel picked up on the third ring. Her voice was already defensive, like she'd been expecting this. Aubrey, she said, I knew you'd call, but you need to calm down. Why did you kick my son out? I cut in, my voice low and sharp. While my town is burning, while I'm on duty, while he had nowhere else to go. Rachel exhaled dramatically, like I was the unreasonable one. You don't understand, she said. Mark is important. My hands clenched. My son is a child. Jacob was fine, she snapped. He just had to wait outside for a little while. You're acting like I left him in the wilderness. You closed the gate, I said, voice shaking. You put his backpack outside. You told him not to call me. Rachel paused, then her tone turned cold. I told him not to interrupt your work, she said. Some of us actually respect what you do, Aubrey. The audacity of it made me go still. Then she added, almost lazily, besides, this is my chance. Mark could change everything for me. For me, not for the family. Not for Jacob. Not even for our parents. For her. I felt something inside me settle. Not anger. Decision. Rachel, I said quietly, you're living in Mom and Dad's house. And, she scoffed. And I've been paying the mortgage for 6 years, I said. Silence. A long, stunned silence. Then, soft, disbelieving laughter. You're lying, she said. I'm not, I replied, and I'm done. Her voice rose. You can't just... I can, I said, each word like a lock clicking into place. And I will. She started talking over me. Excuses, justification, and guilt, like she'd practiced them. So I ended the call, and with my hands still shaking, I opened my banking app. I stared at the automatic payments I'd set up years ago, like invisible chains disguised as responsibility. Then, one by one, I canceled them. Mortgage, insurance, everything. My thumb hovered for a second over the final confirmation, and I thought of Jacob's voice. Mom, I didn't do anything. I hit confirm. Then I typed a single message to Rachel. From today, I'm no longer providing financial support for you, Mom, or Dad. Take care of yourself. When I pressed send, a strange sensation moved through me. Relief and grief. I didn't know then how fast the fallout would come. I only knew one thing. If my family wanted to treat my son like he didn't belong, then they were about to learn what it felt like to lose the person who had been holding their entire life together. The fire didn't end cleanly. Disasters never do. They fade into control, inch by inch, leaving behind smoke, silence, and the kind of exhaustion that sinks into your bones and refuses to leave. By the time campfire was partially contained, my body felt hollowed out. Every muscle ached. My eyes burned like I'd been crying for days, even though I hadn't cried at all. I drove toward Sacramento to pick up Jacob as soon as my shift allowed, the road still wrapped in thin smoke that clung to the hills like a warning that nothing was truly over. About halfway there, my phone started vibrating nonstop in the cup holder. Call after call. Text after text. Rachel. I didn't answer. Not yet. When I finally stopped at a gas station, I checked the screen. 27 missed calls. 15 messages. The first ones were confused. What's going on? Why didn't the payment go through? Then angry. You can't do this. You're ruining everything. The last few were colder, calculated. Call me back now. I stared at the screen, then finally hit call. Once. Rachel answered immediately, her voice sharp and shaking. What the hell are you doing? She snapped. The bank just called. The payment didn't go through. I leaned back against the car, staring up at the pale sky. I told you I was done, I said calmly. I meant it. You can't just abandon Mom and Dad, Rachel hissed. Do you want them to lose the house? Do you want them homeless? They've lived there for 6 years without paying a dime, I replied. You'll find a way. She went quiet for a beat. Then her voice dropped, hard and threatening. If this is about Jacob, it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't. Mark is a serious investor, she insisted. You don't understand how this works. I let out a slow breath. Rachel, my son stood outside in the cold while you entertained someone you barely know. Her tone sharpened. You always exaggerate. You treat him like he's made of glass. Maybe that's why he's so weak. The word weak landed like a punch. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I hung up. 2 hours later, I pulled into Uncle Tom's driveway. Jacob ran out the front door before I'd even fully parked, his arms wrapping around me so tightly it hurt. And I let it hurt. I held him longer than necessary, longer than was comfortable, because I needed him to know, without words, that he was safe. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my parents. I answered because a part of me still hoped. Big mistake. They didn't ask about Jacob. They didn't ask if he was okay. They asked about the mortgage. My mother's voice trembled, not with concern for her grandson, but with fear of inconvenience. Rachel said there was a misunderstanding, she said gently. She didn't mean any harm. My father cut in, stern and dismissive. You know your sister needs help with business. If this Mark is important, Jacob should understand. I pulled the car over. Jacob is a child, I said, my voice breaking. He was kicked out during a wildfire. You're being dramatic, my mother sighed. Rachel said he only stepped outside for a moment. That was it. That was the moment something inside me went completely still. I ended the call without another word. Back home, Jacob slept like he hadn't slept in days. I stood in his doorway for a long time, watching his chest rise and fall, wondering how many invisible scars one night could leave on a child. The next morning, it started. The first Facebook post was vague. A quote, something about betrayal and ungrateful family members. I ignored it. The second one didn't bother with subtlety. Rachel named me. She called me a selfish daughter, an irresponsible firefighter, a woman who turned her back on family the moment things got inconvenient. People commented. People I barely knew. Some defended her, some questioned me. A few tagged my workplace. Then Mark commented, some people in public service struggle with emotional control. This behavior doesn't surprise me. My blood went cold. This wasn't just personal anymore. This was my career. For 3 days, messages poured in. Old classmates, neighbors, distant relatives, some sympathetic, some judgmental. Every buzz of my phone felt like a threat. I tried to stay quiet. I told myself the truth didn't need defending. Until Ethan sat beside me on the couch one night, his hand warm and steady on my shoulder. This isn't about pride anymore, he said softly. This is about Jacob seeing that lies don't win. I looked at my son asleep down the hall, and I knew he was right. So I gathered everything. 6 years of bank statements, mortgage payments, insurance transfers, messages from Rachel thanking me for help she never repaid. I blurred account numbers. I kept it factual. No insults. No emotion. Just truth. When I hit post, my hands shook. The response was immediate. Support flooded in. Colleagues, neighbors, strangers. Firefighters shared photos of me blackened with ash, collapsed from exhaustion. One caption read, "This is what Aubrey Scott was doing while her sister entertained important guests." Rachel's post vanished. Her account went silent. But the damage had already fractured the family into two sides. And then, unexpectedly, my phone buzzed again. A private message from Sam Carter, Rachel's husband. "I'm sorry," it read. "I knew you were paying. I tried to get her to stop. I'm ashamed of what happened to Jacob." My chest tightened. Then came another message. A name I hadn't expected to see in years. Cara Vance, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. She hadn't messaged me. She'd messaged him. "I saw what's happening online. Just checking you're okay. This must be so hard." And just like that, another line of tension was drawn. Because I could feel it. This wasn't over. It was just changing shape. I didn't know what unsettled me more that night. The quiet after the public storm, or the feeling that something unseen was still circling us. Ethan didn't hide Kara's message from me. That alone told me everything I needed to know about the man I'd chosen. He handed me his phone while we sat at opposite ends of the couch, Jacob asleep down the hall, the house finally quiet for the first time in days. She reached out, he said carefully. I didn't respond. I wanted you to see it first. I read the message slowly. Polite, concerned, perfectly reasonable on the surface, and manipulative beneath it. Kara had always been like that. Subtle, never outright crossing a line, always leaving just enough space for doubt to grow on its own. She didn't accuse. She suggested. She didn't interfere. She hovered. I handed the phone back. She's fishing, I said. Ethan nodded. I know. But knowing didn't erase the effect. Because when the world starts questioning your integrity, from your family, your community, strangers online, it seeps into places you don't expect. Even solid ground can feel unstable when it's shaken hard enough. That same night, another message came through. This one from Sam again. Longer this time. More honest. He told me that after I cut off the payments, Rachel had spiraled. She'd screamed, accused him of never being on her side. She'd blame me for everything. Her stalled career, her stress, her anger. She can't stand losing control, Sam wrote, and she's scared. Scared people do dangerous things. Sam warned me that Rachel wasn't done, that she was talking about legal action, that she'd mentioned the word eviction more than once, even though she was the one living rent-free. I read the message twice. Then I sat very still. Because fear didn't live in me the way it used to. Something else had taken its place. Clarity. The next few weeks were strange. Quiet on the surface, tense underneath. Rachel stopped posting. My parents stopped calling. The silence felt unnatural, like the pause before something breaks. Jacob slowly came back to himself. His laughter returned in small bursts. He started sleeping through the night again. But sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, I caught him checking the front door, or flinching when someone knocked. Those moments carved something permanent into me. No apology would ever fully erase that. Then, one Saturday evening, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Ethan and I exchanged a look. Jacob paused at the top of the stairs. I opened the door, and my breath caught. My parents stood there. They looked older than I remembered, smaller, like the weight they'd been leaning on for years had finally been taken away, and they didn't know how to stand without it. My father's shoulders sagged. My mother's eyes were red, rimmed with something that looked dangerously close to regret. Aubrey, my father said quietly, can we talk? We sat in the living room like strangers. They didn't make excuses this time. They didn't minimize. They told me everything. How, after the payments stopped, the truth finally became impossible to ignore. How Rachel exploded when they questioned her. How she accused them of betrayal when they asked her to leave, just temporarily, so they could think. How she'd called the police. On them, accusing them of illegally evicting her from a house she had never paid for. My mother's hands shook as she spoke. That was the moment, she said softly, when I realized we had failed you, and Jacob. They told me they'd decided to sell the house, move somewhere smaller, somewhere they could actually afford. Let Rachel face her own life for the first time. When my mother stood and walked toward Jacob, my chest tightened. She knelt in front of him, hands trembling. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I should have protected you. Jacob stood still for a long moment. Then he said something so simple it stole the air from the room. I've been waiting for you to say that. That night, after they left, Ethan wrapped his arms around me. You did the right thing, he whispered. I leaned into him, finally letting myself rest. But even as the house settled into sleep, I knew something deep in my bones. This wasn't the end. Rachel had lost the house, lost the narrative, lost control. And people like her don't disappear quietly. The weeks after my parents' visit felt unreal, like living in the quiet after an earthquake, when the ground looks stable, but you don't trust it yet. Rachel didn't come back to the house. According to Sam's messages, she and him had rented a small apartment on the edge of town. The kind Rachel used to sneer at. Thin walls, no guest room, no image to curate. The project with Mark collapsed within a month. No funding, no contracts, no miracle. Mark disappeared as quickly as he'd arrived, leaving behind nothing but expensive promises and screenshots. Rachel tried and failed to turn into leverage. For the first time in her life, Rachel had to face something she'd avoided at all costs. Reality. My parents sold the house quietly. No celebration, no announcements. Just paperwork, signatures, and the slow dismantling of a place that had held too many unspoken truths for too long. They moved into a modest apartment not far from Uncle Tom. Smaller, manageable, honest. When my mother repaid part of the money, Her idea, not mine. I didn't put it back into my own account. I opened a college savings plan for Jacob and a small retirement fund for my parents. Strictly structured, transparent, and controlled. Boundaries don't mean cruelty. They mean clarity. Jacob healed in ways that surprised me. At 14, he'd stood outside a gate, believing he didn't matter. By 19, he stood taller than me, calmer than me, with a quiet strength that didn't demand attention. Watching him prepare for college, applications spread across the table, dreams spoken out loud without fear, I realized something humbling. Children don't need perfect parents. They need parents who choose them. Paradise rebuilt itself slowly. New houses rose where ash once settled. Trees returned. Laughter came back to streets that had known too much silence. And somehow my family rebuilt too, just not in the shape I once imagined. Rachel struggled. Sam's accounting salary barely covered rent. Rachel took a delivery job, something she'd mocked for years. Long hours, bad weather, no applause. According to Sam, there were nights she came home soaked and silent, staring at nothing for hours. 5 years passed. Then one afternoon, Jacob told me someone was at the door. I opened it and saw Rachel. She looked different, not defeated, just real. No designer bag, no practiced smile. Just tired eyes and hands shoved deep into her jacket pockets. I want to talk to Jacob, she said quietly, if he'll let me. Jacob stood beside me, already taller than his aunt, his expression calm. I'll listen, he said. Rachel swallowed. I'm sorry, she says to him, for that day, for everything, no excuses. No, but. No justification. Just the truth, finally spoken. Jacob nodded once. I forgive you, he said, but it took a long time. Rachel closed her eyes. I know. After she left, Jacob turned to me. Mom, he said gently, forgiving her doesn't mean what she did was okay. I smiled through tears. That's exactly right. Looking back now, I understand something I couldn't see then. The day Rachel pushed my son out of that house wasn't just an act of cruelty. It was the beginning of liberation. For me. For Jacob. And in a hard and painful way, even for Rachel. Because love without limits becomes exploitation. And boundaries, real ones, are sometimes the most loving choice we can make. So I'll leave you with this question. Is forgiveness weakness, or is it strength earned the hard way? Because even though I've carried people out of burning buildings,